enjoying the way her neck strained. He pulled harder and smiled when her pupils expanded. Terror shone in their depths. Beckett's lies had cut him deep, deeper than he'd ever thought possible. He never got attached to things or people. He'd made the exception for Beckett, only to be betrayed. Now, though, Beckett was going to pay. They'd all pay for deceiving him. Chapter 1. Torrance, California. Holden. It wasn't the first hole-in-the-wall bar he'd ever been inside of, and it wouldn't be the last. Deafening noise rolled through the dark, dank room, rattling the floor of the Rock Tavern. He'd been in louder places. War was a hell of a lot louder than a busy bar. Bottles of orange, yellow, and green reflected in the massive mirror hanging behind the dark oak bar top, stretching the length of the room. Laughter died, taking some of the noise and leaving behind the jukebox playing Hotel California by the Eagles, along with the hum of conversation. The song had been written and produced before he'd ever been born, but its classic beat called to souls, young and old. The noise and music suddenly resembled a distant backdrop when his focus locked on Beckett at the bar. The man held 2 beer steins in his hands with foam spilling over the tops and a smile a mile wide. A smile for him. He bypassed the smiling lips to focus on Beckett's eyes and the sparkle he found there. Laugh lines creased at the edges, adding to the blue sparkle. Eyes were the mirror to the soul, or so they said, but he wasn't sure about that. He couldn't always get a read on Beckett. His dark curly hair, shadowed jaw, and swagger drew more than one pair of eyes as he crossed the room. But Beckett only had eyes for him. Why the hell Beckett insisted on these off-the-wall places every time they met, he couldn't figure out. Beckett plunked one stein on the table, tapped his own glass mug against it, and then tipped the glass, swallowing down a quarter of the foaming beer straight away. The guy at the table next to them burped, and the beer smell wafted, traveling through the distance. Holding his breath, he lifted the ice-cold glass and took a few gulps, enjoying the cold bite on his tongue and throat. Beckett dropped into the chair across from him and jerked his chin toward the bar. He didn't need to look. He'd seen the group of asshats, kids lacking in common sense. And by kids, he meant 20-something-year-olds. College kids thinking they owned the world, with loud mouths, bad manners, and way too much of Daddy's money to spend. Why the hell the brats hadn't gone to downtown Hollywood and created trouble there was anyone's guess. A glass shattered and the 60-ish gray-haired bartender hollered. A tray of drinks, the only waitress in the place carried, crashed to the ground. A fight broke out between 2 men. Another man yelled and a woman screamed. Beckett's shit-eating grin had him closing his eyes, and when he opened them, he glanced down. The shine he'd rubbed into the leather of his black combat boots gleamed dark and rich, but he had a feeling the shine wasn't going to last. "Back me up." Why Beckett thought he needed to say those words, he wasn't sure, because there was no way he was letting Beckett go into the fray alone. Fray being the operative word here. If you could call the fight between 2 guys a fray. Right on the heels of that thought, the whole place broke out in a ruckus, resembling the bar fight straight from Roadhouse, written and produced 2 years after he was born. Who didn't love Patrick Swayze and Sam Elliott? The bar even had the parking lot filled and the souped-up trucks out front. Come to think of it, the bottle throwing, cue stick breaking, and tables toppling looked a bit like the film. He would have much rather been back on base watching the movie. Fray or not, he took a deep breath, kicked out of his chair, and waded in, already knowing his boot shine was history. Good thing he'd stocked up on black polish. He'd bought enough to keep someone fully employed at the polish factory. Beckett ducked a beer bottle flying through the air, and the glass shattered against the table. He didn't duck, had never ducked in his life. It wouldn't do any good ducking with his size anyway. When the bottle landed against the table, he pulled his jacket from the back of his chair and tossed it over the coat tree near the door. It was a long throw. He'd never had trouble throwing either. 2 men tackled Beckett, and the slider man